Hello, beep, 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 mic. Okay, my mic decided to die. What a magical twist of fate. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me during that little thing. Thanks for bearing with me during the break here. Let's talk a little bit about the Wizard of Oz franchise in general. There's a lot of good stuff. Of course, everyone knows the original Judy Garland film, the 1939 classic, one of the greatest films of all time, The Wizard of Oz. Not a lot of people know that that's not the first film iteration of The Wizard of Oz. There was a film that came before that. It was 1925, I do believe. So, happy 100-year anniversary to that film. It was a silent film, but it did have those characters in it. So this was, at the time, a remake of a property. So that's kind of weird to think about. We think about remakes these days as like, oh, what a stupid trend. Well, it's been going on forever. And yay on them for really taking the time to turn this Wizard of Oz thing into just a magical experience. And one fun little thing to point out is a lot of people like to think that The Wizard of Oz was the first movie ever filmed in color. That's not right. Films have been in color since the early 1900s, and The Wizard of Oz is just the one that pushed it over the top because they wanted to play with the idea that they have colors at their disposal. So, as you know, the movie starts in black and white, and then when she enters the land of Oz, color becomes a storytelling technique. Yes. And they're able to showcase all these different little tricks. Like, I guess the big thing I'm hinting at here is this little factoid that the witch has green skin in The Wizard of Oz, and that was the first of its kind. You never saw a witch with green skin until The Wizard of Oz, and it's because they shot this movie in color. They really wanted to make her pop, and it made her look more wicked, didn't it, with that green skin? So that's a fun little factoid I learned actually at the Salem Witch Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. They have all these different wax figures, and they have, there's like a little courtroom area where they reenact some of the witch trials and things, and then down the hall they have all these different witches throughout pop culture, and of course they have a full-size Wicked Witch of the West there from Wizard of Oz, and they specifically point out, look at her green skin. She's the first witch that we think of that has green skin, and that forever became a staple, because now when you think of a Wicked Witch, green skin, that's just what it is. The pointed hat, that has its own meaning as well. That was like, I don't need to get into all that stuff. That's sinister stuff. But yeah. Anyway, that was a fun little thing to note, that Wizard of Oz gave her that tint of skin, and then they played with the ideas of colors throughout. As you notice, the skin color of the horses changed a lot as well when they're going through in that carriage. That's a cute little thing they did. They wanted to showcase their trick photography. And I do believe that it's that carriage that is on display in the Judy Garland Museum, if I'm correct. I visited a few times. They also have like a witch animatronic there. That's a cute little thing. Go on out and pay Judy Garland a little mind if you get the chance this week. Like, pay some respect. Go see her. Her hometown out in Grand Rapids, Minnesota there. There's the Judy Garland Museum. Great time, always. Let's talk a little bit more about Judy Garland. There's a biopic that came out a few years ago. I believe it was in 2019, and I believe it was Renee Zellweger that starred as Judy Garland. It's just called Judy. It wasn't my favorite biopic. It was not my favorite at all. It was a very unique take on a biopic, and that's become kind of a trend these days, especially with bands and stuff. I don't think it was the right way to approach a biopic, because this Judy Garland biopic wasn't about her life as it was about the last few days of her life. And the last few days of her life were not very flattering. It wasn't a fun experience to watch. She's just like bottom of the barrel. She wants to remain relevant. She's just drunk all the time, and she's in a bad mood. And it's like her final tour, and she's just embarrassing herself. And that's the focus of the movie. And I took severe issue with that. I wanted to see more about her life and glorify her a little bit more. This does the opposite. It kind of makes you think differently about Judy Garland after watching that movie, Judy. And they do little flashbacks here and there about like things that happened in her career. And they only flash to the Wizard of Oz one time, very briefly in the beginning of the movie for a couple of minutes, and then that's it. And they don't get much into it. And so, that one was not my favorite. But creative, points for trying something different. Anyway, I went off on a little tangent here about some other stuff. Let's talk about the actual Wizard of Oz properties that came out here. So we talked about the original Wizard of Oz, then the other original Wizard of Oz. Another one that I think is very noteworthy is The Wiz. Came out in the 70s. That one had Michael Jackson in it, and I believe he was the Scarecrow, and he did an amazing job. He danced around, and he had all these fun little moves, and I've never seen a human being move on screen like Michael Jackson does in The Wiz. That is definitely worth your time. So go and check that one out if you get the chance. Another one came out in 1985, so happy anniversary to this one. Return to Oz. Horrifying movie. It was made by a different studio, and they do try to take some of those characters and reuse them, but you can tell that they didn't have the license to any of them. I'm stepping on my costume here. All right, they didn't have the license to use any of them, so they very dramatically different look to those characters. I think it was Disney that made that one. And little Fairuza Balk stars as Judy Garland's character, and she does a great job with it. And she comes back to Oz because she's like summoned back, like her friends need help, and there's a lot of dark and twisted and disturbing things that you see in this movie, where Oz has been taken over now that the witch is gone, and there's this new bad guy that's ruling Oz, and he's, there's a lot of scary claymation and things that are happening, and she has to rescue Oz once again, and she meets new friends that are kind of similar to the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion, and those characters they're kind of sidelined in this Return to Oz. But Return to Oz is definitely worth your time. Check that one out if you get the chance. Very scary. Again, I'll warn you, very scary movie. Then, I think the last little one I want to touch on that I really like from the Wizard of Oz franchise is a little-known animated series from 1990 just called The Wizard of Oz. And this was a true continuation of the story that we love so much. And it ran for one season. I don't know what network. It might have been ABC in 1990. And it just ran for 13 episodes, one season. And it brought back, and it has those likenesses. It has Dorothy and the Tin Man and, all your friends. And it's like Dorothy's back, the Wicked Witch is back, the Wizard is back, and there's just new adventures that are happening. And each episode, Dorothy and her friends have to go out and, solve this new problem or have this new quest. And, of course, the Wicked Witch is trying to stop them. And, of course, the Flying Monkeys are doing their thing. And what a fun show that was. I really loved watching that as a 5-year-old. Those were some of the earliest introductions to this Wizard of Oz franchise that I had. I can't even remember what I saw first as a 5-year-old. If it was the original movie or the animated series, probably the movie, because they used to broadcast The Wizard of Oz every year. It was just this big tradition. It's too bad they stopped doing that, because that was huge. We'd gather together every year, and we made sure we watched it. Massive time slot. It just seemed to go on forever. Kind of like Wicked the other night. NBC showed Wicked on was it Wednesday or Thursday night, and it like preempted our 10 p.m. broadcast. That's television right there, my friends. That was a good time. So I hope you got to watch Wicked live on NBC. That's a fun time. So those are my favorite little pieces of the Wizard of Oz franchise, and there's so much more to cover. I can't talk about all of it, but those are the ones I like the most. Lastly, let's just do a quick little weekend recap for me here. We did the Christmas City of the North Parade on Friday. So that was broadcast here on NBC 6.1, 6.2. I'm just going to show you real quick the video of that. Hello, Mike. Okay, my mic's up. All right, so here's our team. Here's the Twin Ports Ghostbusters marching through the parade. What an amazing time. This is our fourth year as the Twin Ports Ghostbusters, marching down Superior Street here. Here's our car. Here's our gigantic Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's kind of hard to see us. They didn't like get tight shots on the group or anything, but there was a million of us out there this year. And we were joined by our friends at the Ronald McDonald House. You can't really see them, but they're holding up a big banner, and it was just a fun time. We love the Christmas City of the North Parade. It's one of our favorite events of the season, and it's usually our last event of the season, although we do have something else coming up in a couple of weeks here. But like this just feels like the holidays are upon us when we start doing this particular event. And then here we are. You can kind of see us there. And then there's one of the few tights, and then that's that. And then we get into some other stuff. So I'll just go back onto cam here. Zhunk. All right. Mike's going? Yes, Mike is going. Okay, so that was just a quick little recap of my weekend there. We did the Christmas City of the North Parade. Went and visited my folks for a little bit. We watched some more movies out there. And then prepped for this little movie segment by watching Wicked and all that good stuff. So it was a good time indeed. So were there any things I did not cover here? Let me just check. No, I think we talked about everything. So we'll wrap up a little bit here. I'll tease ahead to the next episode next week. So it's, it's Christmas. I'll just say that. It's Christmas. There was no avoiding it. There were going to be Christmas movies at some point in time, and now it's finally happening. There's some big Christmas-related things coming out next week, and so it just seemed like we've got to do an episode about this particular property. It's another well-known, beloved Christmas classic that there are many different versions of out there. And you can bet I'll have another silly costume next week. And there's your little tease for next week. So, I think that's about it, my friends. So, until next week, until then, behave yourselves, stay wicked, and stay spooky, my friends.